Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. This video is going to be a video on divine spells and how they could be used in a very unique way for battles and military situations. This is level 1 divine spells for this episode. I'm going to include 0 level spells. I'm going to include both cleric and druid spells and how I think they could be used or what unique things you could do with them for a battlefield situation. And at the end of the video, if I come up with anything, I'll think of how you could combine this with an arcane spellcaster as well, from what we discussed last video for level 1 arcane spells. So level 0 spells. Bleed, cause stabilized creature to resume dying. That could be useful if you're clearing the battlefield after a battle's over. Prevent you from having to do much. Create water creates 2 gallons of water per level with no limit because it's a 0 level spell on the amount of times you can cast it. Well, you don't have to worry about having water for your troops. Detect poison, detect magic. Guidance is an individual gets a +1 on those. That'll be okay. Light, you don't have to worry about carrying torches around as long as you can make things light up. But that's an individual thing. So depending upon how you wanted to do your battles, whether you're fighting daytime, nighttime, because given the fantasy nature of Pathfinder and D&D, you got a lot of creatures that have low light vision, you got a lot of creatures that have dark vision. So there's a lot of interesting conflicts that can happen based on the time of day. Mending makes minor repairs on objects. That could be good for repairing damaged straps and stuff like that. It wouldn't be any help on repairing weapons or armor that's been damaged or anything. Purify food or drinks real good because that purifies 1 cubic foot per level. So you could take a whole lot of food that's been spoiling, cast purify food or drink on it, and now it's edible. So that could help you with your supply lines. Read magic, not that useful for war situation, unless you're carrying a bunch of scrolls or find a bunch of scrolls that could help you. Resistance, not that good. It's single target. Stabilize, causes a dying creature to stabilize. That can be good if you're behind a group of soldiers that keep going down while other soldiers take their place and push forward. You can stabilize the ones that have fallen and go back later to heal them. And then virtue, subject gains 1 temporary hit point. That's not that good. But those are 0 level spells. They're not meant to be great. So the biggest advantage a cleric would have as a divine spellcaster on a battlefield is the fact that with 1 feat selective channel, you can open your channel area up, your 30-foot radius, and heal everybody in the 30-foot radius. With selective channel, you just select those in there that would not get healed. So you would pick your enemies, of course, and you could heal your allies that 1d6 each turn. And the average usage you'd get is 5 to 7 from a first level cleric. So 5 to 7 channels of 1d6 extra hit points. That could keep an army moving for a while. If you had 10 of those in a 100 to 250 man army, that would really change how that battle would go. And then that would scale up as well. Now let's dive into the first level spells. Bane and Bless. Let's look those up to see if there's a limit to how many can be targeted, but both of those look like they'd be useful. Bane, standard action to cast, divine focus, yep. Range 50 feet, okay, so it's further out than the range of a channel, which could be good. And centered on the caster, so Bless would be the same. Will negates, of course. Duration 1 minute per level. So assuming it's a first level caster, 1 minute. So 10 rounds. For 10 rounds, this bonus or penalty, bless or bane, would persist. And the bane also penalizes saving throws. So I'm assuming bless also gives a bonus to saving throws. Yep. But the bonus and penalties to the saves only against fear effects. Good to know. Bless water makes holy water. That could be good against a bunch of undead armies. Cause fear. It's a single creature of 5 HD or less flees. That could be good if you could guarantee that the target you're targeting, like one of the leader-ish characters, had less than 5 levels. Command, one subject obeys your command for 1 turn. That could be entertaining, but that wouldn't be beneficial. Comprehend languages is very beneficial if you're fighting creatures you don't know the language of, or invaders that you've never seen before. Cure Light Wounds isn't that great because it's a single target. Curse Water is the same as Bless Water. Death Watch would be really good. Your clerics cast Death Watch as the battle begins, and they could see how near anyone within 30 feet of them is to death. And it would look like a health bar from a video game over their head, but only to that cleric's vision. Detect Chaos, Evil, Good, Law. That could help you if you're not sure where or if something is of that alignment. Detect Undead, reveals undead within 60 feet. That's useful when undead is the subject of the war, especially if you're not sure if any undead's hiding or in mist form, because you might not necessarily see that either. Divine Favor and Doom is 1 subject each, so it's kind of not that beneficial. Endure elements exist comfortably in hot or cold regions. That's not that great. The 3rd edition version of that was you got resistance 5 to hot or cold, actually to any element, because it was just like the lowest form of energy resistance was 5. Entropic Shield, range attacks against you have a 20% miss chance. That's not that beneficial. Hide from Undead. And it's 1 subject per level, so higher level clerics, that'd be very beneficial. Get your divine army or your divine casters in the army access to a bunch of hide from undead scrolls, and you can make the majority of your army invisible to the undead while the battle starts. But if I remember correctly, hide from undead works like invisibility. So once you attack, the hide from undead that's on you goes away. Inflict light wounds isn't that good for a war setting. Magic Stone gives you up to 3 +1s. It's okay. Magic Weapon's okay. Not that great. Obscuring Mist is pretty good since that can change if your enemies can hit a large portion of your army or not. But that is subject also to wind conditions. So under the wrong wind conditions, it's not that great of a spell. Protection from Chaos, Evil, Good, Law. I believe that's a single target, but let me look that up to make sure. Creature touch, so single target. So that's not that great for a war setting, but could be if you had a champion you wanted to increase their bonuses. Remove Fear, suppresses fear, gives +4 on saves against fear for 1 subject, +1 per 4 levels. That's not really that great. It's good for the small heroes exploring a dungeon, but it's not great for a massive war. Sanctuary, opponents can't attack you and you can't attack. Let's make sure that's not just a single target, because if that isn't a single target, that could be a good spell. Sanctuary. Single target, creature touched. Okay. Shield of Faith isn't that great for a war setting. It's just an AC bonus to one creature. Summon Monster 1. That could be useful, but it wouldn't be that great. The big problem with summon monster spells are, unless you're summoning a lot of something that could give you an advantage in a different way than just combat, the lower level ones are almost useless. Because you're summoning, at first level, you're summoning something that's a challenge rating 1/3 or 1/4. So it's not even going to have hardly any hit points, hardly any attack ability. So that was the cleric. Let's go into the Druids spell list for 0 to 1st level spells. 0 level, create water, detect magic, detect poison, flare. So flare appears on the Druid list, so the Druids could utilize it the same as the mages. No direction, you discern north. So the Druid could really tell you where you're at as far as have you been heading in the right direction with no direction. He could go, okay, we've been going this way from north, or north has been to our left, or north has been to our right, or north has been behind us the whole time. Light, mending, purify food and drink, read magic, resistance, stabilize, virtue. So other than no direction as the newest one there, the 0 level spells pan out about the same as the clerics. So they're not great for a war setting. Some of them can add to it. So 1st level Druid spells. Calm animals. That could be good if the enemies released a bunch of charging animals at you or angry animals at you. Cure light wounds, not that useful. Detect animals or plants. That could be useful if you need to find something to eat. Let me read that spell. Range 400 feet plus 40 feet per level. It's cone shaped, so you're looking in that direction and then it gets out. You can, duration's concentration up to 10 minutes per level. So the maximum duration is 10 minutes per level. So this spell you have to concentrate on. It's one of the few in Pathfinders that you have to cast and maintain concentration to keep the spell active. You can detect a particular kind of animal or plant in a cone emanating from you in whatever direction you face. You must think of a kind of animal or plant when using the spell, but you can change the animal or plant kind each round. The amount of information revealed depends on how long you search a particular area or focus on a specific kind of animal or plant. Round 1. Presence or absence of the kind of animal or plant in the area. Round 2. Number of individuals of the specified kind in the area and the condition of the healthiest specimen. Round 3. The condition and location of each individual present. If an animal or plant is outside of your line of sight, then you discern its direction, but not its exact location. Conditions. For purpose of this spell, the category of conditions are as followed. Okay, so based on how much of its total hit points it has would determine what its condition is as far as that goes, whether it has disease or not. But this will not penetrate a foot of stone, 1 inch of common metal, a thin sheet of lead, or 3 feet of wood or dirt. So you can't look into like a mound and know what's in there from the outside. You'd have to look through the door of the mound. And that could be good if you're in a forest and you're like, are there any rabbits or small game? You could then picture a small game and look through the area. Detect snares and pits can be useful for a war setting, especially when the enemy's prepping the ground ahead of time. Now Entangle, that's going to be the best war spell I know of for first level. Let's dive into Entangle. Entangle. Range is long, 400 feet plus 40 feet per level. Area, plants in a 40-foot radius spread. Duration, 1 minute per level. This spell causes tall grass, weeds, and other plants to wrap around creatures in the area of effect or those that enter the area. Creatures that fail their save against the entangled condition. Creatures that fail their save gain the entangled condition. Creatures that make their save can move as normal, but those that remain in the area must save again at the end of their turn. So if you're moving through an entangled area, every turn that you remain in it, even though you can move through it, it can try to grab you again. Creatures that move into the area must save immediately. Those that fail must end their movement and gain the entangled condition. Entangled creatures can attempt to break free as a move action, making a strength or escape arts check. The DC of the check is equal to the DC of the spell. The entire area of effect is considered difficult terrain while the effect lasts. If the plants in the area are covered in thorns, those in the area take 1 point of damage each time they fail a save against Entangle, or fail a check made to break free. Other effects, depending on local plants, might be possible at GM's discretion. So you're looking at a 40-foot radius that you can launch at 440 feet at level 1. And that 40-foot radius, so that's an 80-foot area. If you put it in front of an army marching, they have to figure out how they're getting around it. So that's going to break their formation. Or they're going to try to trudge through it, and then those that get grabbed will be left behind initially. And that could break up the formation again. The way that Entangle is written is similar to 3rd edition. The only difference that I've ever used it is I'll allow players to provide a plant, and then the spell will cause that to create vines from that plant in the radius spread. So, say, put a potato on an arrowhead, shoot a potato into the area, and use that as your focus. You could also use that to grab things that are flying in the air. Fairy Fire outlines subjects with light, canceling blur, concealment, and like. It says subjects, so I'm wondering how many that hits. Its range is long, 40 feet plus 40 feet per level. Creatures within a 5-foot radius burst, so it's a 10 foot. So it's a 10 foot by 10 foot square. This is what the party needed that were fighting the Displurky. A pale glow surrounds it and outlines the subjects. Outlined subjects shed light as candles. Creatures outlined by fairy fire take a -20 penalty on stealth checks. Outlined creatures do not benefit from the concealment normally provided by darkness, though a 2nd level or higher magical darkness effect functions normally. Blur, displacement, invisibility, or similar effects. They don't get the concealment from this, yes. The light is too dim to have any special effect on undead or dark-dwelling creatures vulnerable to light, as in you can't use this against vampires, to hurt them. The fairy fire can be blue, green, or violet, according to your choice at the time of casting. The fairy fire does not cause any harm to the objects or creatures thus outlined. Good berry. Good berry is useful in a worse situation. You get access to a bunch of berries, cast a bunch of good berry spells. Each good berry is supposed to heal 1 hit point when eaten, which is an okay side effect for what you're really using it for. You feel full, like you've had a full meal from eating a good berry. Hide from animals, that could be useful, but that's individual usually. Jump, long strider. Long strider is useful on the druid end if you don't have access to the mount spell from the arcane end. Because you could cast, although this would be individual, so you need wands of this if you were to make this applicable in combat. But it'll add 10 feet to all your soldiers. Each time you cast it on each soldier, they get 10 feet. So you would have an army that instead of marching 30 feet base speed march for so many miles in a day, they're now 40 feet base speed march for so many miles in a day. Which would also be based on how long Long Strider lasts. So let's see how long Long Strider lasts. And then if you cast this on barbarians, their speed will be crazy good. And then if you cast it on monks, the higher level monks, their speed would be great. But until then, it would just make them as fast as a regular barbarian. There it is. It lasts 1 hour per level. So that could make a difference on how much ground your army could cover. Magic Fang, not that useful. Magic Stone, not that useful. Obscuring Mist, we already discussed. Pass Without a Trace would be good for a skirmishing group that's scouting or trying to go in to do a nighttime raid, so your party more or less, but it wouldn't be great for your whole army unless you could get a massive casting of that on the army. And then your army couldn't be tracked. You would disappear as you went through from one battle to the next, or from one end of the area to the next, which would be very fun for them to try to fight. So I could see that working to your favor if you were using it that way. Produce Flames. That could be good to spread fire on a battlefield, but other than that, it's individual thing that you get. Shillelagh wouldn't be useful as a war application. Speak with Animals could be useful if you're trying to figure out if an army's been by or not, but that'd be it. Summon Nature's Ally 1 has the same limitations as Summon Monster 1. So it's all based on challenge raids it could bring. Now, with Speak with Animals though, assuming you can summon the same Nature's Ally twice, you could summon, say, a hawk to look ahead, and then summon it again and cast Speak with Animals and find out what it saw. But then you'd also have to interpret that from its point of view and not yours. It sees a bunch of shiny metal things moving down the road this way. Or it sees like an ant trail moving this way that glimmers. So that would be the limitation on that stuff. And that's how I would use first level divine spells in a military application. There could be more uses if you could get access to a lot more castings of the one individual targets. Problem is the amount of time it would take to prep that to use. Now, if you could put some of that on an item, then some of those not as beneficial spells become more beneficial. If all your soldiers are carrying an amulet, that's a one-use item. So that by itself will make it cheaper. That can say cure Light's wounds as a command word once and then turn to dust. Well, that could change the swing of a battle pretty quickly. These are the ideas I had with those spells. Now, as we get into second level spells, we'll start to see a lot more cool and interesting ideas that we can apply militarily. Well, until we meet again.